Hi, this is Marie from Creations Photography and Design, and I'm going to be speaking about retouching today. Retouching has other applications besides just portraits. The techniques you will learn will help you with photo restoration. It will help you with compositing when you need to move a little things around. And it'll also make your friends happy when they take their picture, when you take their picture, rather. So let's go to this eye first. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, and indeed it is. And if you get a good eye, you're going to have a happy camper. And I always work on new layers if I possibly can, or adjustment layers. Now I have already opened this up in Camera Raw, but I haven't done any adjustments. I'm just making it Camera Raw so I can maybe do a little warping, I can do some other things, and it won't affect my underlying picture. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is work on those red eyes. So a new layer, and I'm going to call this Heal and Clone. Okay, I'm going to grab my healing tool, healing brush, by tapping the J key. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And whenever you're healing, and there is a color change that you're going over, you want to have the center of the brush right where they change color. Otherwise, it's going to blob in or out. And you really don't want that. And you can go over this more than once. I'm going to get rid of those moisture-induced hot spots in her eye. I'm assuming it's a herb with the eye makeup, but that's just me. Okay. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to heal out things that are not permanent. She's got glitter in her eyelashes. Some of her eyeshadow has clumped and flaked out. So I'm going to work in there and clean up all that other stuff while I'm at it. Now, if it's a permanent part of my subject or my client, I ask if there's anything they want changed. Sometimes they'll say, well, no, whatever, I'm fine. And they say, are you going to do any retouching? And I said, yes, I'll give you the spa treatment. And the spa treatment makes dark areas lighter and light areas darker, not to the point where you get a plastic face, but to the point where they look well rusted. And I've done a lot of people over the years. I did calendars a couple of years at the Art Center. And not one of my models objected to the spa treatment. Now here we've got some places where she hasn't plucked her eyebrows in a day or two. So I'm going to come in and pluck them for her. Now occasionally, you see that one just copied itself. If you don't get the clear area that you think you're going to, brush from the other direction. Changing direction seems to tell Photoshop to sample from a different place. I don't know exactly how that works. I'm not privy to the inside functions of Photoshop. But I do know that varying the direction really is helpful. And being a woman who spends a lot of time plucking my eyebrows, I understand how this woman feels. And I'm going to go in here and get this little stuff right here. I would have a unibrow if I didn't pluck religiously, and I have since I was, in my teens. And they say, well, if you do it often enough, it goes away. Well, baloney. It keeps growing back to me. Okay, looking pretty good. There's just a couple of places that I'm having a little problem with, and it's light areas. And our eyes are drawn to light areas. Now, I do want this wonderful catch light in the eye, but I don't need these tear lights very much. And let's see if I can come in here with a little brush. Well, I don't know. Let's come the other direction. Nope. All right, and I'm going to do the same little brush here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm not gonna fuss anymore. But this one, I couldn't find a way to do it with my healing brush. So I got out my, whoops, we forgot a vein here. We don't want to forget that one. There we go. Okay. And I couldn't do it with a healing brush, so I had to go in ahead and get a clone stamp tool. So I'll go ahead and tap S for the stamp tool. And I'm going to change the blend. I'm going to leave the blend mode normal at 100% opacity. And I'm going to sample right here where the iris meets the eyelid. Now, we're going to have a serious problem here because, you know, no matter which way we go, it's just not going to be right. So I'm going to go over to the clone source panel, and I'm going to take the width and flip-flop it. And now you can see the eyeball is curving in the area we want it to be on. So I'll come over here and start. Whoops. You have to start in the same your area that you. So I'm going to really have to start right about here, and then come back, and then we'll move that out. And there we go. Here's before and here's after. I personally think that looks much better. Okay, now I'm going to, at this point, take these two layers together and convert them to a smart object. All right, now, often, every time you see a famous person, their photograph has Hollywood eyes. Hollywood eyes is eyes that are just a little bit bigger than they look in reality. So let me show you Hollywood eyes. You could go in to liquefy it and use the make it bigger, and it, you know, the bloat tool maybe, but I think this works for me just a little bit better. I'm going to grab my lasso tool and make a rough selection around this eye. Actually, I'm going to come make sure I get that corner. All right, and then I'm going to jump it to its own layer, Command or Control J. And because I'm making it bigger, I'm going to make it a smart object, and I'm going to say transform. On this one, I can go 105. Oops, let's not do that. So let's try. I did it backwards. I want to lock the width and the height together. Then I want to add my 105 because we want it bigger all the way around. Okay, here it is before, here it is after. No one will notice, but they'll all like it real well. We are going to add a layer mask and get a brush. And I get a brush, tap the B key, and I want a fairly large brush, and I want it fairly soft. Now I'm using on a Mac, Control Option, move my mouse around. It gets bigger and smaller as you move it left to right, and it gets harder and softer as you move it up and down. So I want a pretty soft brush and a fairly large brush. Well, maybe that's a little too large. And I'm going to tap my X key to make black my foreground. And I am going to mask out everything but the edges of the lids. Which would include the lashes. So here we go. You can see the difference. Oops, there's a little bit here that has kind of a sharp edge. Now you don't have to do this, but many people do. There's something right there that I don't quite like. But I'm not sure if I like. Yeah, it's there. Okay. Looks pretty good. Great. Now, what I'm going to do is go back down to, well, yeah, I want this eye layer. I'm going to grab my quick selection tool and make this, select this eyeball. Now I want to add a curves adjustment layer above it. And you notice it automatically made me a layer mask. But I don't want the, whoops, let's get a brush, Marie. And I don't really want the highlight not worked on. And so I turn my mask on and off by Alt or Option clicking. All right, now we go over here and I'm going to move the white slider in just a little bit. And I want to lock it to just this eyeball layer by clicking this. Now you see it's locked together. So I move this in just a little bit. You can see the center of her eye get lighter. And usually it's just outside the range of all of this color here. I am at the moment going to just tap in the middle of this, the largest part of the graph, which would be the gray tones. And then I'm going to come down here to the dark areas and pull the line down just a little bit. Whoops, let's see. Now you see how I can, if I pull it down. And I may want to go back and adjust the white. And I also may want to play with the midtones. It looks like a perfectly normal eye, but here we are before and after. And this really makes a difference in how the eyes pop in the photo. And again, this is adjustable. And I want it to be fairly subtle, but it is adjustable even after you close it and open it back up next week. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the eye itself. Let's start thinking about the skin. And I'm going to call this the darken layer. Now you notice she has some shiny stuff over her nose. And there are some areas that are a little bit lighter than what one might want. I'm going to tap S for this clone stamp. S for the, when you rename a layer, you have to hit Enter, or your next keyboard shortcut will just be as part of the label. This time, I want, because this is a darken layer, I'm going to get a darken blend mode. And we're going to make it about 30%. 35 will give it a little heavy. And when you're in the darken blend mode, whatever, let me zoom here. When you're in the darken blend mode, if you sample in a darker area, everything that's lighter than that will change color. So I'm going to sample here. Now you notice there's quite a difference here. There's light on one side and dark on one side of this line. Whoops. Aha. Yeah, I noticed that. I thought I fixed that. Okay, let's sample again. And we're going to bring this lightly over. And some wrinkles do have a light side and a dark side, depending on where the light is hitting or is coming from. See down here, I want to sample in the dark area. And sometimes you might want to actually hit it twice. And just evening out the skin tones will help make the skin, it'll help even out the skin tones is what I want to say. I'm having trouble saying it, but that's what I want to say. And use the biggest brush you possibly can when you're making these darken and lighten. Now there I got a little too far, or picked the wrong area to sample from. So I'm going to grab my eraser. Whoops, let's try that eraser again, make it a little bit smaller. And do it over again with my stamp tool. And sometimes you have to sample more than once. Sometimes you have to tap more than once. Okay. I'm going to leave that alone. But you're seeing what I'm doing. Now over here, we can get out just a little bit and we can sample over in here to work on these shiny spots. And if you have, and I do have this in my options set to current and below, so I'm sampling from the layer below. Now in here, I'm looking for a color that looks about right. I'm going to try in here and see what happens. Nope, not going to work. So let's try sampling from the nose. It's better. I'm still not happy with it. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go back over here. And I am going to go to my Camera Raw filter. And I'm going to take my highlights down quite a lot. And then say OK. And now we have before and after. And it got rid of the shiny spots. Okay, we're good. Now we need a new layer, and we're going to call this one Lighten. And again, we're going to use our clone tool, but this time surprisingly, we want the blend mode at Lighten. So here we sample and go over. And I have found that when I'm lightening, I generally have to go over it a couple more times than I do when I'm darkening. And again, only the things that are darker than the area that you've sampled will be affected. So in here, for this dark line, I'm just going to pick an area from her eyelid. And I keep sampling because I don't want to run into a feature that will show because if you run into one of these other lines, you're going to have quite a mess going on. Okay. We'll also work with these wrinkles in here. And sometimes, now we could make them all go away. And I must admit, I tend to be heavy-handed when I'm doing this for my clients. I'm going to come in here, make my brush just a little bit bigger. Whoops. Stamp tool. Let's go 0. All right. And bring that down in through here, just to make this area. Now see, we ran into an edge. So we have to be careful when we're sampling that we resample often enough that we don't run into edges. Okay, we'll again work in here. And because we're working on a separate layer and we're sampling from all layers, we can even sample in places that we have cloned over. Okay. Now I've got to say, I've probably cloned too much out. And I am going to come along here with a small brush and clone along here where her eyes are so deep set. And you're probably saying to yourself, Marie, that looks horrid. Well, when I'm all done with that, I go to the opacity of the layer and put it between 35 and 50%. Now let's look at that. Spot treatment. Let's look at 35, 36. You can still see that she's an older woman and she has wrinkles, but she's had a little bit of spot treatment. Her skin tones are evened out. Now we're going to do the same with this darkened layer in the opacity. And we'll move it up to where we just see a little bit of difference. Well, it looks like 100% on that one. But anyways, the wrinkles are the most important part. I'm going to put that down a little bit. All right, so I think at this point we're about done. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this one, and I've struggled with this. I don't like pictures taken of me, and I had to do this as a selfie. And it wasn't any fun. And I had to flip it horizontally so I could see what I look like in the mirror, because I don't like it the other way around. It always looks wrong to me. Well, I have gone through and done camera raw adjustments to even out the skin tone a little bit, do some other stuff. And then I went in and I did a little liquefying. Oh, here it is. I shouldn't have had that on. I puffed my hair up. I made this eye to where it's the same size as the other one. You see here, it's just a little bit smaller. And I bumped out the wrinkles. Now let me show you the liquefy. Come on. the newer versions of Photoshop have this lovely face aware liquify that you can play with whatever you need to. For instance, the nose, I can make it wider or narrower. And of course, being a vain person, I narrowed it down just a little bit. I used the push tool to make the hair bigger. You could use the bloat tool to make the eye bigger. You could use the pucker tool. Maybe here. I just tap along here. If you want to work with it, I'm going to leave it alone. I think this is the best I could get it. Sorry about that noise. I don't know why every time I go out of these, my computer makes the weirdest noise. Okay. I don't like the background. It bisects my head in a bad place. It's not very pretty. So I have put a mask on this. Actually, I put two masks on. I've done one mask for the sharp area of my skin and another mask for the hair area. So as we turn, whoops. So we can turn this on and off, and you can see basically what we've done here. So now I'm ready to retouch. Maybe. I am going to go here and get my quick selection tool and select those eyes. And then I'm going to add a levels or a curves adjustment layer. And we're trying to brighten those eyes up. So let's go in just a little bit. I do want this tied to only this layer. So I am going to bring in the light areas a little bit. And I see I've got outside the lines. And I'm going to bring in the dark areas just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the layer mask itself, zoom in some more, and grab a brush, a much smaller brush, and come in and, well, let's change colors here. Come in and get this part that doesn't need to be overdone. So just that curves makes a huge difference on my eyes. And my eyes really do look more like this. You'll just have to believe me, they really do. And I showed you how to retouch eyes. So I'm not going to try and get the red out of these eyes. I'm going to go right to the heavy duty stuff. And at this point, I'm going to try something. I'm going to make a copy of all the layers. So I'm going to stamp a copy, and it's Shift, Alt, Option, Command or Control E, and we have something all right there all by ourselves. Now I'm going to change this to a smart filter, and you'll notice my skin is really uneven, so I'm going to try a camera raw filter, and I'm going to reduce the clarity just a little bit and see if that doesn't help the skin tone. And I'm going to say okay, and sure enough it did. But now everything's not as sharp as it was, so I go to this layer, grab a brush in black, brush Marie. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And the things that shouldn't be all sloppy, I'm going to paint in black. And the things that shouldn't be all soft are eyes, eyebrows, the end of your nose, your lips, or my lips, as the case may be. And then I'm going to zoom out and get a much bigger brush. My hair should be sharp, although that's not as important as your eyes, nose, and mouth. And maybe the clothing. So here's the mask. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Anyway, so just doing that little bit has saved us a tremendous amount of work. And we're going to call this comp. And I'm going to call it less clear, just so I know what I've done underneath there. So just that little camera raw filter makes a huge difference in the skin tones. And I think it's going to save a lot of work. So now I get my new layer. And we want a stamp tool, and we're on lighten already. So let's start lightening here. And this needs a little bit more lighting. And I deliberately didn't smile so we could play with smiles. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to be hurrying because I've shown you the basic techniques. I've got this scrawny chicken neck now. I got to say it's because I lost some weight, and it really makes a difference. I don't have as much double chin as I used to, so I'm going to try one more thing here. I'm going to see what happens if I come under here. Don't like it, so I'll undo that. All right, where else do we need to? We need to get rid of these areas here, here. Here, maybe here. And here's some skin tone that didn't get evened out, so let's just see what we can do with it. All right. Okay, remember, on this darken layer, let's try 40%. Let's try a little bit less than that. There we go. Now I didn't do a heal and clone layer, but I showed you how to do that all over. There are some light areas that I could lighten out. And remember, these don't have to be wrinkles. They can be lines and blots and stuff if you're retouching. And let's see, I want to go to, well, this is my lighten layer. This is my I'm darken layer. This is my lighten layer. Okay, back up to darken. Make sure that I have darken here, and I'm going to go a lot smaller here. I'm going to go in here. And lighten up or darken this area here. I'm going to darken the end of my nose a little bit. I might darken this area under my eyes. Here's an area here that has a weird color to it. Okay. So I'm going to save this while I'm at it. And let's look at these layers. And here's what we had to start with without the liquefies. And here's our liquefies. And we've added the background. And we've done all the changing. I think it looks a heck of a lot better. Anyways, I want you to enjoy your your retouching experience. I forgot something. So I'm going to add a tag into this. Suppose you want to really get creative. Let's go above this curves layer where we changed the intensity of the eye, and let's add a hue and saturation. Whoops, I want a hue and saturation layer. And I'm going to clip it just to this one, and I'm going to use this same mask. I'm just going to Alt or Option click to move it to the next layer. Now when I go over to my hue and saturation, we can change the color of the person's eyes. Now suppose you want a real scary zombie. Let's go to color eyes. We can get that red or glowing in a green or a blue or whatever color. Ooh, that's kind of a scary color right there. But I just wanted to show you that. You probably already knew it, but just in case. Thanks so much.